How sailing works and sometimes doesn't, or the science of sailing. I have a question for you. If you are using the wind to push you along, how can it be possible to sail where the wind is coming from? Also, how the dickens is it also possible to sail faster than the wind? I will give you answers to both these questions and include a bit of history of the development of sailing. My name is Colin McCowan and I've been sailing since my early teens and have invented and built quite a few experimental boats, with some success and quite a lot of failures. I hope that you will enjoy this video and possibly avoid some of the big mistakes that I have made. Thanks for looking, and I hope you find a bit of this video useful to you. How sailing boats work. Try this. Squeeze a wet, juicy lemon or orange pip between your finger and thumb, or an ice cube, and you can make it shoot across the room. This illustrates rather nicely how a sailing boat can be squashed between the wind and the water and be made to shoot forward. The wind pushes on the sail and the water pushes against the hull and keel. Sailing faster than the wind. This lever represents the wind pushing down. This little trolley represents a boat at right angles to the wind. And in a situation like this, you can see that the wind is trying to push the boat sideways, but nothing much is happening. If I put a sail on the boat and the sail is angled at 45 degrees, you'll now notice that as the wind hits the sail, it pushes the boat along. The wind is going down 4 inches and the boat is travelling across 4 inches. Now if I change that for a less steep angle, you will now see that this wedge is 1 inch thick and 4 inches long. So now when I press down, the boat travels, the wind travels 1 inch down and the boat travels 4 inches across. And it gets even better if I put a wedge that is at 1 inch thick, 10 inches long. And now the wind is moving 1 inch and the boat is moving 10 inches. This is a summary of the previous video. It starts with the drawing number 4, bottom right hand corner, where the wheel and lever are pushing straight down and nothing moves. Then drawing number 1 shows a wedge of about 45 degrees where the sail would be at this angle on a boat. The theoretical ratio of wind speed to boat speed would be 1:1, but this is not accounting for air or water drag. Drawing number 2 is probably more realistic, proportion of 4:1. Drawing number 3 is too hopeful because the weaker force of the thin wedge would be too small to overcome water resistance. Drawing number 4, if the wedge becomes so long and thin that the sides become parallel, it is no longer a wedge and therefore there is no forward pushing motion. This is a demonstration of sailing into the wind. This lever here represents the direction that the wind is blowing down, like that. This surface represents the sail and this surface represents the water. And when I press down on the wind, you can see that the boat travels into the wind at an angle. I'll do it again. Just pressing down, it squeezes the boat upwards. About 5,000 years ago, sailing was pretty basic. You made a boat, put up a mast and hung something from it to catch the wind, palm leaves or a piece of cloth, and you get blown along. Yippee! Now you can stop rowing. The trouble was that you might have to wait forever for the wind to blow in the opposite direction to blow you home again. Many early ships used banks of rowing galley slaves if there was no wind or it was blowing in the wrong direction. The Vikings used square sails, but because their hulls were nice and long and efficient, they could sail at an angle of about 30 degrees into the wind, from where the wind was blowing from. Normans or Northmen, who were descended from Vikings, 1066 and all that, they probably had much better sails and hulls than are shown here in the Bayeux tapestry. William, Duke of Normandy, had to wait several weeks for the wind to change so that he could invade England across the Channel. This cost him a lot extra in having to feed his men and horses for several weeks, waiting for a fair wind. The Mary Rose, 1545. King Henry VIII's brand new flagship sank in the Solent on her maiden voyage. Why? She probably had too many heavy iron cannons too high up above the waterline. Her gun ports were open to show off the guns. Possibly foreign, poorly trained sailors who could not follow instructions quickly. Too much sail up and a sudden gust of strong wind sideways as she was making a turn. And possibly hubris. Because Elizabeth I kept putting off her promise of marriage to King Philip II of Spain, refusing to convert to Catholicism and executing Queen Mary for treason, Philip threatened to invade England with his armada. The British Navy and ships were in a bad state of repair. The ships were leaky. A quick solution was to plate the bottom of the ships with copper. This had the unforeseen advantage of also stopping marine growth such as barnacles and weeds. These slow ships down. Now Admiral Drake's ships were faster. This map of England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales, showing where 21 ships of the Armada were shipwrecked. They had three big problems. One, the bad weather with strong westerly winds. Two, not being able to sail into the wind. And three, the Spanish probably did not know that the Gulf Stream came up this far north, pushing them backwards, eastwards, towards the rocks. The main purpose of this video is to explain how ships and boats can sail fast and into the wind. You might not have reflected just how important sailing technology has been to the history of England. In the stock market, a trade with a copper-bottomed investment is an investment with a prudent amount of risk, more likely to produce a good return. The saying comes from the fact that copper-bottomed ships were more likely to return from their voyages with their profitable cargo. Any ship that can sail faster or closer to the wind have great tactical advantage over any rivals. Examples might include the Barbary pirates, the Armada and the Battle of Trafalgar. 3,000 years ago, the Arabs sailing up and down the Nile, in the Mediterranean or in the Indian Ocean, found a way of leaning the yard, that's the big long stick holding the top of the edge of the sail, leaning it at an angle into the wind and thus producing a big curve in the sail. This type of sail is called a lateen. Now the wind has to travel round a nice big curve on the back of the sail. This accelerates the air, which in turn produces a partial vacuum. and that helps to suck the boat along more powerfully. This also meant that these boats could sail faster and closer to the wind, a threat to the merchant ships in the Mediterranean. Dhows have a large, long, square-sided plank all the way along the bottom, which helps to stop the boat slipping sideways when they are sailing. Such a plank along the bottom is called a keel. Dhows could sail at an angle of 50 degrees off the wind, better than the square-rigged European merchant ships of the time, which could only sail at about 60 degrees. This is also one of the reasons why the Barbary sails were such formidable pirates. Because lateen sails are better for sailing into the wind, this system was added to square-rigged ships. They were called stay sails because they were suspended from ropes or stays from the deck up to the mast. At the bow they are called a jib or jib sails. The British Navy adopted these types of sails in 1709. Sail efficiency, or the efficiency of sails. These sails are ranked in the order of their ability or efficiency of being able to sail into the wind. Number 1 is the flat square sail, which were used since antiquity. They are good for going downwind, but not for going into the wind. Number 2 is a lateen sail from about 1,000 years ago, or in Polynesia they are known as crab claw sails. Number 3 is a stay sail. Number 4 is a gaff. Number 5 is a Chinese junk sail. Number 6 is a Bermuda sail, and number 7 is a wing sail. Bottom right hand corner of the page shows a flat sail, a standard curved fabric sail, and a wing sail in the order of efficiency going down the page. Side slip efficiency, or preventing leeway. Believe it or not, most sailing boats actually have 2 foils or wings, one above the water, the sail, and one below the water, the keel. The air pushing on the sail not only pushes the boat forward, but also tries to push the boat sideways. To resist this sideways push, leeway, sailing boats have a streamlined hull and a keel or centerboard to counteract the sideways force. The drawings show number 1 an Egyptian reed boat, or just a bundle of reeds tied up. Number 2 a Norman or Viking longship. Number 3 a hull with rounded corners, not terribly good. Number 4 square corners are better. Number 5 square corners with flanges. Number 6 plank or clinker built boat. Number 7 rubbing strips, which resist leeway better. Number 8 sharp corners or chines, sharp folds in the design of the hull. Number 9 an Arab dhow with a protruding keel along the length of the whole boat. Number 10 a Dutch or a Thames barge with drop down planks on either side, which are called leeboards. Number 11 a hull with a keel built in. Number 12 and 13 a yacht with a keel and lead ballast built into it. And number 14 is a twin bilge keel, which can stand on firm sand when the sun goes out, when the tide goes out. If the wind is blowing down from the north and a rocky shore is to the south, you need to be able to sail away from the rocks into the wind. A shore with wind blowing onto it is called a lee shore. It is important, or rather it is vital, a matter of life and death, that you can sail away from the rocks. You need an efficient sail and a hull that does not slip sideways too much. Ice and land yachts can sail many times faster than the wind and at very fine angles to the wind. The wind coming from the bottom left-hand corner of this page at an angle of 45 degrees and the sail set at 45 degrees to the boat produces a sail force A. The keel produces a force B perpendicular to the keel. See the force diagram on the right hand side. These two forces A and B resolve into force C driving the boat forward into the wind at an angle of 45 degrees to the wind. If you want to draw a force diagram, draw lines A and B at the correct angles and give them lengths to represent the magnitude of the forces in them. Then construct a parallelogram. The diagonal C is the resolution of forces A and B. It gives it its direction and its magnitude. Tacking into the wind. How do you get from a place that is directly downwind to a place that is upwind? Easy. If you can sail at an angle of 45 degrees into the wind, which is called close hauled, you just zigzag your way left and right or to port and starboard to get yourself into the wind. This is called tacking into the wind. The word starboard comes from the Viking steerboard or steering oar, which was an oar over the right hand side of the ship for a right-handed Viking to steer with. They did not have a rudder hinged on the stern. If you want to remember the coloured lights, which coloured lights go on which side of the ship, the easiest way is to remember that port wine is red, so the port side is the left side, the red side, and the starboard is the right side, and therefore the green light. How to steer without a rudder. Windsurfers lean the sail and the mast back, moving the centre of pressure backwards. See on the drawing CP, the centre of pressure. This pushes the back of the board round. Then the sail and the mast are leaned forward, as in the second drawing, and the sail then pulls the front of the board round, completing the turn. Sail balance, or how to steer without a rudder. Tighten the main sheet or loosen the jib sheet and she will head up into the wind. If you loosen the main sheet and tighten the jib sheet, she will bear away and steer downwind. Sail balance. If there's too much sail at the back of the boat, it will push the stern round. This is called weather helm. If there is too much at the front, it gives a lee helm, pushing the bow round. A little bit of weather helm gives the rudder and tiller a bit of feel. Too much of either slows the boat down because the rudder is having to work too hard correcting the boat's course. Bernoulli's principle, or how curved sails work better than flat sails. Here is a quick and simple experiment which, if you've never done this before, you should definitely try and do it right now. Hold a piece of ordinary white A4 paper, hold it with two hands on the two long edges as shown in the drawing. Let the front third of the paper bend as shown at point A. Make sure that it's pressed down with your two thumbs. Let the rest of the paper hang down at the back at point B. Now take a deep breath and blow steadily across the top of the piece of paper. Try blowing slightly higher above the piece of paper or a little bit lower onto the curve. You should see the back of the paper lift up as shown in label B. This experiment shows very nicely that the air pressure on the top of the paper is lower than the pressure underneath it, and consequently the paper rises. Now I'm going to try and show you that it is not so much the speed of the air that is important, but the change in speed as it travels over the curved surface. Change in speed is called acceleration. If it starts to go faster, hold the same piece of paper hanging down vertically, but this time hold it by the top two corners so that it is not curved. Then blow again. I think that you will see that the paper does not lift towards the fast stream of air this time. It might flutter a little bit, but it does not lift like the previous experiment. There you are. You have just demonstrated that a lot of textbooks on how aeroplane wings don't mention this acceleration factor. It is not the speed of the air that creates the low pressure, it is the acceleration over the curved surface or the curved leading edge, as in the case of aeroplane wings. In this diagram, one that you will see in many explanations of how wings and sails work, the blue area represents the low pressure side of the wing. If the angle of the wing or sail is too steep or the air is too slow, then the flow over the curved surface breaks away. The low pressure is lost and the aeroplane falls out of the sky, or in the case of sailing, you lose your power, and the telltales on the far side of the sail no longer stream backwards, nice and straight. They point up and down and even twirl and twist about. The top drawing, number 1, shows a plan view of the airflow behind a traditional square rig sail. As far as the air is concerned, the air is hitting a flat surface. For aeroplane wings, they say that 2/3 of the lift comes from the upper surface. Who wants to throw away 2/3 of their pushing force? Maybe for fabric sails we are talking more like half the force from both sides of the sail. But you still don't want to lose half your lift or pushing force. Telltales. One way to check if a sail is pulling fully is to have little strips of ribbon or woolen yarn attached to both sides of the sail. They are called telltales. When a sail has a streamlined flow of air travelling over both sides of the sail, as shown in the middle drawing, the two telltales are streaming straight backwards. This produces the maximum lift or force. If a telltale points up or down or wiggles about, that side of the sail is stalled. The air is not flowing smoothly, which also means that the sail is not pulling to its maximum. In drawing number 1, the outer or far side of telltale is lifting, showing that the air on that side of the sail is stalled. The air is not flowing smoothly, which also means that the sail is not pulling to its maximum. The rope holding the angle of the sail, called a sheet, must be let out to lessen the angle of the sail. Or the boat can be turned further into the wind, closer to the wind, headed up to windward. Drawing number 3 is the reverse of drawing number 1. The near side of the sail is stalled. Daniel Bernoulli, I believe he was a Swiss mathematician from 1734. This picture represents a pipe with a non-compressible fluid, such as water, flowing from left to right. A is a volume of water in the wider tube, and B is the same volume squeezed into a narrower pipe, so that it has to be longer to fit the same volume in a smaller tube. Distance D is longer than distance C. Therefore, the fluid in the narrow tube has to travel further in the same amount of time, therefore faster. Now the interesting bit is what is happening in the constricting bit at E. The water has to accelerate from slow to fast. Newton says that for something to accelerate there must be a force. This force is provided by the difference in the pressure between A and B. Therefore, the pressure at B must be lower than at A. Therefore, there follows a series of drawings and practical experiments that you can do that illustrate these principles. This drawing represents a box with one atom inside, all on its own, and it's got kinetic energy, so it's bouncing about up and down, left and right, and it's creating pressure on all four sides, well actually 6 sides because there's a front and a back. To the right hand side somebody's taken the wall away, and that little atom, instead of bouncing up and down or backwards, it can escape to the right. Therefore it has less energy to press up and down, and therefore because it's moving it has less pressure to push up and down. And that is my little explanation of why there might be a lower pressure due to Bernoulli's principle. Here is another little daft illustration of my illustration of why the pressure might be reduced as the water speeds up. The top drawing represents a plastic comb, and all the little fingers represent the atoms pushing on the side of the wall. The bottom drawing is the same comb, but it had to speed up, so it's had to stretch. So now there's greater distance between the prongs of the comb, and therefore they are pressing on the walls of the tube with less effort. I know it's a daft illustration, but it's food for thought. This is another illustration of Bernoulli's principle. These are 3 ping pong balls at a fairground where in the old days you used to get an air rifle, 5 shots for a shilling or something, and you had to try and shoot the ping pong balls off the jet of water. On the right hand side there's a ping pong ball that's rolled down the slope and touched the jet of water, and the jet of water is spinning past the right hand side, and that sucks the ball into the middle of the jet. So the middle illustration shows now the ping pong ball with an equal jet of water either side spinning round it, so it stays captured inside the jet of water. Hang up 2 balloons or polystyrene balls. Take a straw and blow air between them. You might expect them to move apart. Hold a dessert spoon lightly between fingers and thumb at the top end and let it dangle. Then bring it close to a stream of water and let the water just hit the back of the spoon. You might expect the spoon to be pushed away, but you'll be surprised that it actually gets sucked into the jet of water. Another little trick you can do is hold a cylinder, such as a bottle or a glass, into a stream of water and see how the flow curves round the glass and the water goes all over the place. It sucks onto the glass. If you need to change the angle that a sail is facing into the wind, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can change the angle of the sail, or you can steer the boat at a different angle. This illustration is a little bit insulting to anyone's intelligence, but it's just necessary to point out that there's 2 ways, or you can even do it as in drawing number 3. You can have a combination of changing the angle of the sail in the boat and changing the angle of the boat in the water. A lightweight ball of expanded polystyrene held in a jet of air. from the blowing end of a vacuum cleaner, a hot air gun with the heat set to 0, or a hairdryer on a very low heat setting, or you'll melt your polystyrene ball. But you can suspend the ball at some daft angles and it's good fun. Bend it like Beckham. If a ball, cylinder, golf ball, tennis ball or football or anything spinning in the air, one side will speed up the air and the other side will slow it down, thus creating a difference in pressure on the two sides, and the pressure will move the ball sideways in a curve. This principle has been used in a rather strange type of sail called a Flettner rotary sail. A Flettner rotary sail. This is a sketch of a ship with a fuel-saving device called a Flettner rotor. It is named after its inventor. The two rotors are spun by small motors, which then gain a propulsive force from the wind. This wind tunnel illustration is a standard way to show the reduction in air pressure as air flows over the top surface of a wing. Water, the thick black lines, is sucked up the tubes to a height which shows the reduction in pressure. Notice the tube connected to the leading edge, showing a positive pressure. It is this difference in pressure that gives the sharp acceleration, which in turn causes the drop in pressure. In aircraft terms, sailing boats are using pretty slow moving air. This explains why modern sailing boats have such thick wing masts. It is counterintuitive to have a thick mast for a boat you want to go fast. The thickness is needed to speed up the air over the rest of the wing. Wing tip vortices. Why the modern racing sailing boats have such tall, long, narrow wings. The aircraft type wings are more efficient than the fabric sails. The air from the high pressure side of the wing tries to escape to the low pressure sides, twisting round the ends of the wing. This swirling of air or vortex loses lift and causes drag. So by having the wings as long as possible and tapered, this reduces the amount of vortex drag. The Froude number. The top drawing shows a boat travelling at a speed where the front of the boat creates a bow wave and the stern sits in the water as it bobs up again at the back. This way the boat gets some of its energy back again. The boat sits in the wave that it has just made. This is an economical use of the boat's power or driving force. The bottom drawing shows the same boat, but it's going faster. It creates a bigger wave, but also a longer wave, so that the boat is having to go uphill or push up its own wave. The extra power needed to achieve this is exponential, which means that you only get a bit more speed for a lot more power. However, if a boat can be made to climb out of the water and travel on the surface, a new set of rules start to apply. This is called hydroplaning. The shape of the hull changes from banana shape to a fairly wide flattish bottom with a straight run out. It must be straight from the front to back, or it risks sucking itself down into the water. This is a drawing powerfully illustrating why streamlined hulls have a natural limiting hull speed, the Froude number. If the hull tries to go faster, it makes a bigger wave and sucks in more. It can actually be sunk. To find the speed that a displacement boat can achieve, you have to measure the water line in feet. A displacement boat is one that travels in or through the water. Calculate the square root of that number and then multiply it by 1.4. and you will have the economic speed for that length of boat. The Cutty Sark sailing ship was built for the China tea trade. Whichever ship could return from China with the first new season supply of tea would get the best price for their cargo. The Froude calculation comes out at 15.3 knots, but her claimed maximum speed is 2 knots faster. Was she surfing down waves in a storm? How accurate were the measurements? Cutty Sark refers to the figurehead on the bow. She is the scantily dressed witch who chased Tam O'Shanter. She's in a poem by Robert Burns. What a shame that on the replacement figurehead they have prudisely clothed her, covered her beautiful bare breasts. In her hand she is holding the tail of Tam's horse. That was all that she was able to catch as Tam crossed over a bridge. Air drag. Just because you can push a boat along with your little finger on a calm day, and a hull can support tons, and sails can push and pull like crazy, this does not mean that air drag can or should be ignored. Certainly not if you want to go fast and win any races. This is my list of air draggy things. Anchor, the red fender, people, loosely flapping clothes, big hats, big flag, pendant flags, radar reflector, wind electric generator, washing, safety railings, ropes, wires, cabin roof and portholes. A lot of these items are very necessary and are unavoidable, but not all of them. Now, water drag. Weeds, barnacles, mud, rough paint, fender dragging in the water, idle propeller, and all unnecessary weight. All cause drag. You might ask why there's a picture of an aeroplane in a video that's about sailing boats. All weight in aeroplanes or in boats has to be supported somehow, from wings, buoyancy, or a skimming planing hull, or even hydrofoils. Consequently, weight always produces some induced drag. Geoffrey de Havilland proposed a lightweight twin-engine fighter, light bomber or reconnaissance aircraft made of plywood, the Mosquito. It could be built in workshops all over the country. Because it had less weight, it had less induced drag. The wings did not have to support as much weight to keep the aeroplane in the sky. Therefore, more speed, more range, faster and further. No need for a defensive gunner or a gun turret because it was too fast to catch. 2 hydroplaning failures. I made 3 floats or hydroplanes, 1 red and 2 white of the white design. They all failed to get out of the water, mainly due to lack of experience with fluid dynamics. In the top drawing, the water sucked round the stern, pulling it down and into the water. The black arrow shows the suction force. In the bottom drawing, the water was supposed to break away from the step in the bottom of the float, but it also sucked down, preventing hydrofoiling. The step should have been bigger and of a sharper angle. I do not think I could have avoided these problems without doing the experiments myself. This is how many discoveries are made. When you get the results and you did not expect and then find out the reason. It's a pity that these floats failed. I might have had some more faster and more exciting hydroplaning. Is the back of your boat sucking the boat down or even backwards? The vertical back surface of a boat is called the transom. If water managed to stay stuck to the back, it can suck your boat in and slow it down. The bottom drawing is a proposal for sharpening the bottom back edge of a moulded boat. I once saw a Jeremy Clarkson program about powerboat racing in America. He was at Lake Mead and was wading up to his waist in water. His comment was, "If you want to go fast, you need to get out of the water." He went for a ride in an unrestricted class of powerboat. As a passenger, his back was pummeled as this boat hit every wave. This is called hydroplaning. This is a Belle K dory. The bow is curved upwards and there are two channels running under the boat which trap a mixture of air and water. The rear 2/3 of the boat, the run out, is straight so that the boat can lift up onto the surface and skim along the top. This is called hydroplaning. Motor torpedo boat at full speed. Hydroplaning. It is travelling at about 33 knots. You can see that it is sitting on its own bow wave, skimming over the surface. Another shot of 3 MTBs. Hydrofoils have been used on powerboats for a long time, but they are now being adopted by just about every class of sailing boat. Surfboards, windsurfers, kiteboarders, even ocean-going transworld sailing yachts, all flying along with a minimum spray behind them. This is a picture of Yellow Pages Endeavour, which held the world speed record for the fastest sailing boat for 12 years. It has 3 hydroplaning floats, an aeroplane type wing and a long arm to windward with 2 pilots in a cockpit who are balancing the wing's tipping force. This is a drawing of the underside of one of the hydrofoils on Yellow Pages Endeavour. The fences on the foils are there to stop air being sucked down from the surface and thus making the foils lose their grip on the water. Air being sucked down from the surface is called ventilation. Water vaporizing on a foil due to low pressure is called cavitation. Cavitation. At the turn of this century, there seemed to be a 50-knot barrier. Sailing boats could not achieve 50 knots. The keel blades or foils were going so fast through the water and the reduction in pressure above the foil was sufficient to make the water vaporize or boil. This vapor or steam, or whatever you want to call it, removed all the lifting force from the top of the foil. Losing 2/3 of your foil's lift, but keeping the drag created by a blunt rounded leading edge, not so good. The bottom drawing shows a supercavitating foil which is designed to cut through the water, forget the lift on the top surface and rely solely on the pressure coming from the bottom surface of the foil. These drawings are a summary of my research into how to make sailing boats not tip over so much, prevent capsizing or blowing over, and possibly even being able to sail faster. You might like to look at another video I've made, YouTube video, called Sailing Faster 2. That's the number 2, not 2 somewhere. Sailing Faster 2. Number 1 showing the forces on the sail and the keel, the tipping forces. Number 2, the crew or helm, the crew and the helmsman sitting on the side of the boat to stop it capsizing. Number 3, a lead weight at the bottom of the keel. Number 4, a wide hull to spread the distance between the buoyancy and the ballast or weight. Number 5, a double hull or catamaran to spread the distance between the weight and the buoyancy. Number 6, a windsurfer leaning into the wind. Number 7, crossbow. Number 8, Yellow Pages Endeavour. Number 9, a Kurtz kite surfer. Number 10, sail rocket. And number 11, a kite surfer where the pilot stays flying in the air. While thinking about how to reduce a sailing boat's capsizing moments, I came up with this idea, this solution. I then went to Liverpool Patent Library to see if it was an original idea. To my small dismay, I found a book by Bernard Smith called The 40-Knot Sailing Boat, which expounded this very same idea. But at least my idea was not totally mad. But no one had yet used it to achieve the world speed sailing record. This was what I then aimed to try and achieve. I also came across the Amateur Yacht Research Society, AYRS, which I subsequently joined. I had remembered a useful little bit of my school science, Newton's third law of motion. This is a picture of the front cover of Bernard Smith's book, 40-Knot Sailing Boat. If I remember correctly, he was a rocket scientist who sailed model boats in shallow lakes or puddles after heavy rain in the American desert where they were testing rockets. The baton was then taken up by Malcolm Barnsley in England, who produced a radio-controlled model that went flying across the water. It was then Paul Larsen and Vestas, a Danish wind turbine company, who went on to produce Vestas sail rocket, which at present holds the world speed sailing record. Shucks, another failed experiment. The model of this version of this went flying across the water, but this one didn't get very far. The black arrows show the idea, the principle of the sail pulling against the keel. The keel is near the pilot's hand sticking down into the water. But today there wasn't very much wind. Another version with a bigger sail. 2 modified self-steering windsurf boards. Achieved moderate speed, but the pilot's float does not hydroplane. This is a perspective drawing for my patent application. Compare this working version with the previous drawing. I will show the drawing again. Flipping between the drawing and the real boat for comparison of the two. The boat again, but the pilot's float is still not hydroplaning. This is a combination of a symmetrical wing mast and a batten sail. If the battens were made of ash and more flexible towards the front, they could provide a better and more powerful aerofoil. No wind at the moment, but a chance to take a photo. She can go like stink, but also I managed to capsize her. What happened to my non-capsizing part of the design? To me, this chart of the fastest sailing records is pretty interesting. It shows the developments in the way that boats are supported. First in or through the water, called displacement, then on top of the water, hydroplaning, then above the water, in the air, and finally through the water with the use of water wings or hydrofoils. Maybe you should pause this video and write down a few of the names or print out the page, and then go and visit the web pages images and videos of these boats and people. They are insane, fantastic, exciting and fun. Sorry that I cannot include them here due to the copyright laws, but I highly recommend that you go and have a look at them. If you think that some of the theories I've been describing might be a bit far-fetched, baloney or rubbish, the world speed sailing record achieved by Sail Rocket in 2012 show that it's possible to achieve sailing speeds of 2.5 times faster than the wind, but also at a staggering speed of 65.45 knots. Yellow Pages held the record for 12 years. Sail Rocket has also held the record for another 12 years. What next? Please like and share with anyone who you think might be interested in sailing or science. You might be interested in another one of my videos called Sailing Faster 2. That's Sailing Faster, the number 2, not Sailing Faster to somewhere. Thank you for watching. Bye.